Hello, this story is not in the history books. It was passed over by our chroniclers, overlooked and shrugged off, and I think that's a shame. It's a story we should all know, but this is a story that has not died. You'll hear it in the pubs of Hertfordshire. Mothers whisper it to each other every winter. It's a story that is known but not written. It is a warning from history. It's a rumour that has persisted for maybe hundreds of years. A legend that refuses to be forgotten. Welcome to Cold Christmas. Today, I'm on Cold Christmas Lane near a lovely little village called Thundridge. This tiny hamlet is called Cold Christmas. But why? We're about 2 miles from Ware and about 7 miles from Hertford. To the west of here is the village of Thundridge. To the east, nothing but fields. But Thundridge used to be here. It was moved. There was a village here. No one knows where it was exactly, but all the locals round here know why it has vanished. The street sign is the only real tangible evidence that it ever existed, and the only memorial to what happened. That and our collective memories. All that remains is the old church tower. It was part of St Mary's Church, which was first built in 1086. The church bell is still up there, and that dates back to the 15th century. The graveyard is certainly medieval. What happened here is tragic. One Christmas, it was cold. It was really cold. The sun went down. The candle lights were put out. Everyone went to bed. No one woke up. Everyone in the village died. They froze to death. Everyone here will tell you that 10 children froze that night. No one knows their names. No one knows when. There are no dates, no newspaper articles, but we can have a guess. People have been living here a very long time. Remains from the Romans and Saxons have been found. In the Domesday Book, Thundridge is listed as having 9 households, 4 villagers, 3 smallholders and 2 slaves, 1 mill, 2 ploughs and 16 pigs. The land was valued at 30 shillings. About £1.50. Today, there are maybe 700 people living in Thundridge. There are 3 pubs, a cricket team, a football team, and who knows, maybe even a pig. But I doubt the story is that old. Perhaps the nicest thing about living in Britain is that by and large, we don't suffer from extreme weather. The winters are not too cold and the summers are not too hot. It rains, but we don't flood. The people are mild and the politics is mild. We're very lucky, really. Basically, we have 4 seasons of rain. Ooh, isn't it lovely rain? Ooh, isn't it mild for this time of year rain? Followed by, ooh, isn't it chilly rain? And ooh, isn't it getting warmer rain? In Britain, we do sometimes get really cold winters. It does happen. The Thames used to freeze over and people would go ice skating. There were even frost fairs, and we know the dates. Our coldest ever winter was in 1683. Mid-December saw the Great Frost across the UK and Central Europe. The Thames was frozen all the way up to London Bridge by early January. The frost of 1684 was the longest on record. The Thames was frozen for 2 months. It froze as deep as 11 inches. Near Manchester, the ground was frozen to 27 inches. And in Somerset, to an astonishing 4 foot. It didn't thaw until mid-February. Standing here, I'm only a quick train ride from central London. It's only 30 miles away. If it was cold in London, it was cold here. So our cold Christmas could have been in 1684. But my guess is Murphy's winter of 1837. In the 1830s, Patrick Murphy was famous. He was a weatherman, not the first con man to make money predicting the weather, and certainly not the last. He made his fortune selling an almanac in which he correctly predicted the severe frost of 1838. On the 20th of January 1838, temperatures dropped to minus 16 degrees Celsius in London. The temperature at Greenwich was minus 11 degrees C at midday. The Thames froze, and I suspect the hamlet of Cold Christmas got its name that very year. But I can't accept this. I won't accept this, and nor should you. I don't want to believe those 10 children died for nothing. There has to be a silver lining. Some good has to come from it. Ready? Okay, everyone ready? And I have a theory. The story of what happened at Cold Christmas must have spread. If you and I know about it all these years later, then the people of London all those years ago must have heard about it too. I think the world's greatest ever storyteller heard about Cold Christmas. He heard about those poor 10 children, and that set in motion a series of events that changed Christmas and changed the lives of children everywhere. One word. One word. One word. Dickens. 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 Only 5 years later, in 1843, Charles Dickens found himself short of money. He was already a famous writer, but he needed a bestseller. Ghost stories were popular, so he wrote one. Dickens was a campaigner who wanted to change the law. Back then, if you defaulted on a loan, you could go to prison. You see, Dickens' dad was called John Dickens, a jovial opportunist with no money sense. When Charles was only 12 years old, his dad was in a spot of bother. In February 1824, John Dickens was sent to the Marshalsea debtors' prison under the Insolvent Debtors Act of 1813. He owed a baker called James Kerr £40 and 10 shillings. He couldn't pay. A couple of months later, in April, his wife Elizabeth joined him with their 4 youngest children. Charles Dickens didn't go to prison. He stayed with a Mrs. Roylance on Little College Street. He was independent. He had a job. He worked at Warren's blacking factory, making boot polish. His job was to stick labels on the jars of polish. He walked 5 miles to the factory every day and 5 miles back. Mrs. Roylance didn't charge him rent. All this, though, had a very deep effect on him. His family were released 3 months later in May 1824. John's mother had died, leaving him £450. He was able to pay off his debts, and he was out of chokey. Now, Dickens' dad was in and out of debtors' prison. He would borrow money from Charles and from his friends, and even from his publishers. As a result, Charles Dickens fell out with his publishers. They wouldn't touch his new ghost story. So he had a brilliant idea. He sold his new story direct to the public at a very affordable 5 shillings a copy. He sold 6,000 in the first few days, and it was a huge hit. The book, of course, was called A Christmas Carol. When we think about Christmas, we think about that book. Back in the Middle Ages, Christmas was a multi-day festival of fun, but it had dwindled to a sedate, unimportant event. In the Victorian calendar, Dickens revived it. Basically, Dickens invented the modern idea of Christmas. Snow, presents, family meals, turkey, and children at the centre of it all. It's all there, mistletoe and goodwill to all men. Dickens had seen the poor of England. He knew the hardships they faced. He wanted to make the world a better place. As a side note, it's worth pointing out that in A Christmas Carol, Bob Cratchit earns 15 shillings a week. In today's money, that's about £611 a week. £122 a day, £15 an hour. So the next time you're annoyed by a delivery driver, or dissatisfied by the waiter in a restaurant, or impatient with a supermarket shop assistant, remember, they're probably earning less than Bob Cratchit in A Christmas Carol, a story about poverty and income equality. Bob earned £15 an hour. Minimum wage in this country today, right now, £9.50 an hour. Every winter, people die of the cold. Even here in Britain, the 5th or 6th richest country in the world, it's only -2 degrees today, and I'm freezing. In a bad winter in England, maybe 25,000 people will lose their lives to the cold. The bulk of them will be old and vulnerable, the sick, and of course the homeless. This year we have a fuel crisis. Energy prices are sky high. Rolling blackouts are being talked of. We don't build memorials to those who die of the cold. We don't remember their names. We don't have a day of national mourning. But here in Hertfordshire, we do remember the 10 children who died in the cold and didn't wake that Christmas morning. We don't know their names, yet mothers whisper the story so it will never be forgotten. So, this Christmas, don't worry, I'm not asking you for money. I'm not asking for you to give anything to charity, although I'm not asking you to do that. But this Christmas, take a moment. You know the drill. Stuck indoors for days with family, the arguments are inevitable. The food may be overcooked and the presents are heading for landfill in January. This Christmas, take a moment and just be thankful your kids are warm. Do you know, it feels like it might just snow tonight. I'm Matt Fresco. If you enjoy this sort of vaguely legal, slightly sanctimonious, fact-filled, Hertfordshire-based content, please hit the subscribe button. Oh, and have a Merry Christmas.
You cold? Oh, it's cold.
Really cold.
I wonder if school will be cancelled tomorrow if it carries on.
No.
I want school to be cancelled.
It won't though.
Did you fall over?
Dad, you want to play?
It's cold.
Dad, come play.
I haven't got these short shoes on yet.
Put some on.
It's cold, man.
Shut up.